The air crackled with anticipation. Trump, never one for understatement, had declared he could end the war in Ukraine. This week, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had boldly echoed. The world watched, a mixture of hope and disbelief swirling in the air. Could this be the breakthrough, the moment the bloodshed finally stopped? The conflict, now in its third agonizing year, had become a horrifying stalemate. Millions displaced, cities reduced to rubble, the specter of global conflict looming large. Trump's promise, audacious as it was, offered a glimmer of light in the darkness, but at what cost? Whispers of backroom deals, of concessions made and principles compromised, followed Trump's every move. The world held its breath, waiting to see if this brash promise would be his greatest triumph or his most devastating failure. The tension in the White House briefing room was palpable. Every camera angle, every raised eyebrow spoke of the high-stakes game being played out. The air was thick with anticipation, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting for the next move in this political chess game. When Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent took the podium, I was ready. His expression was a mask of calm, but I could see the tension in his eyes. The president's recent pronouncements on tariffs, a confusing mix of threats and appeasements, demanded clarification. The policy seemed to shift with every tweet, leaving both allies and adversaries in a state of uncertainty. "Mr. Secretary," I began, my voice cutting through the murmur of the room, "can you explain the administration's position on tariffs?" The room fell silent, all eyes on Bessent. The president's statements seemed contradictory, leaving many to question the administration's credibility. How do you reconcile these conflicting messages? The journalists around me were scribbling furiously, capturing every word, every nuance. The skepticism in the room was almost tangible. Bessent's carefully neutral facade wavered. His eyes darted around the room, searching for a friendly face but finding none. He stammered, attempting to defend the 90-day tariff pause, a move widely seen as a desperate attempt to placate an increasingly volatile market. His words were unconvincing, and the room knew it. The market's reaction had been swift and brutal, with stocks plummeting and investors panicking. The administration's strategy was backfiring spectacularly, but the damage was done. The administration's carefully crafted narrative was crumbling, and the press, myself included, were eager to expose the cracks. The questions kept coming, each one more pointed than the last. The room was a battlefield, and Bessent was losing ground. The press, relentless and unyielding, was determined to uncover the truth. The administration's days of unchecked power were numbered. Caroline Leavitt, the young press secretary thrust into the maelstrom of the Trump administration, faced a daunting task. Tasked with defending the indefensible, she walked a tightrope between loyalty and truth. The strain was beginning to show. Leavitt's usual composure faltered when pressed on the administration's plans for peace in Ukraine. Her voice, usually a calm and measured counterpoint to Trump's bombast, rose in pitch as she deflected questions about Zelensky's exclusion from peace talks. "The president is committed to achieving peace," she insisted, her words rapid fire, her eyes darting around the room, but the conviction in her voice seemed to waver, replaced by a hint of desperation. The pressure, it seemed, was beginning to tell. The international community reacted with a mixture of shock and outrage. Trump, in a move that surprised even his closest advisors, had suggested that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky be excluded from any peace negotiations with Russia. The message was clear. Trump, eager to secure his self-proclaimed dealmaker legacy, was willing to sideline the very leader whose country was at the heart of the conflict. This disregard for diplomatic protocol, this willingness to negotiate over the heads of those directly affected, sent chills down the spines of world leaders. Was this a stroke of genius, a bold power play designed to force a swift resolution? Or was it a reckless gamble, a dangerous miscalculation that could prolong the conflict and further destabilize the region? Only time would tell. Beneath the surface of the peace talks, another story unfolded. While the world watched the diplomats and officials shake hands and exchange pleasantries, a more clandestine narrative was taking shape. Whispers of a secret deal, a quid pro quo involving Ukrainian raw materials, circulated through the halls of power. These whispers hinted at a complex web of negotiations where political leverage and economic interests intertwined. Treasury Secretary Bessent, a key player in the administration's economic policy, was reportedly leading the charge. His involvement signaled the high stakes and the significant economic implications of the deal. The details remained murky, shrouded in the language of national security and economic opportunity. Confidential documents and closed-door meetings added layers of secrecy, making it difficult to discern the full scope of the arrangement. But the outlines of the deal were clear. American companies, with the full backing of the Trump administration, would gain access to Ukraine's vast mineral wealth. This access promised significant profits and strategic advantages for the United States. In exchange, Ukraine would receive financial aid and, perhaps more importantly, a guarantee of American protection. This protection was crucial for a nation grappling with conflict and instability, offering a semblance of security and support. Was this a mutually beneficial agreement, a chance to rebuild a war-torn nation while securing American interests? The potential for reconstruction and economic revival was immense, presenting a hopeful vision for Ukraine's future. Or was it, as some feared, a cynical exploitation of a vulnerable nation, a way for Trump and his cronies to line their pockets while the world burned? Critics argued that the deal prioritized profit over people, raising ethical and moral concerns about the true cost of such an arrangement. Section 6. Billions spent, millions at stake, the economic reality of war. The human cost of the conflict was immeasurable. Lives were lost, families were torn apart, and entire communities were displaced. The scars of war extended far beyond the battlefield, affecting generations to come. But the economic toll was also staggering. The war triggered a chain reaction that rippled through global markets, causing economic instability and uncertainty. Businesses shuttered, investments plummeted, and the world faced a financial crisis of unprecedented proportions. The United States alone had committed over $65.9 billion in military aid to Ukraine, a figure that represented a significant portion of its defense budget. This amount dwarfed all other international contributions, highlighting the scale of American involvement. Other nations contributed as well, but none matched the financial commitment of the United States. This massive investment, while necessary to counter Russian aggression, raised questions about the long-term sustainability of such spending. Defense analysts debated the effectiveness of the aid and its impact on the broader geopolitical landscape. The financial burden had placed a significant strain on the American economy. Budget cuts in other areas became inevitable, affecting public services and social programs. The war had exacerbated existing inflationary pressures, driving up the cost of essential goods and services. Everyday items became more expensive, and families found it increasingly difficult to make ends meet. The rising prices of groceries, utilities, and other necessities hit the average American hard. The economic strain was palpable, and the public's frustration grew. The administration's efforts to downplay the economic impact rang hollow to ordinary Americans struggling to make ends meet. Protests and public discontent became more common as people voiced their concerns. The mineral deal, if it came to fruition, promised to offset some of these costs. The potential revenue from mineral extraction and trade agreements offered a glimmer of hope for economic recovery. Government officials touted these plans as a way to mitigate the financial strain, but skepticism remained. Critics questioned whether these measures would be enough to address the deep-rooted economic issues. But it also raised uncomfortable questions about the true motives behind American involvement in the conflict. Was the push for mineral deals a genuine effort to aid economic recovery, or was it driven by ulterior motives? Was the U.S. truly committed to defending Ukrainian sovereignty? The official narrative emphasized support for Ukraine's independence and territorial integrity. Or was it, as some critics alleged, more interested in securing access to valuable resources? The debate over the true intentions behind the U.S.'s involvement in the conflict continued to spark controversy and discussion. Section 7. Controlling the narrative tensions in the briefing room. The White House briefing room, once a forum for the free exchange of ideas, had become a battleground. The Trump administration, notoriously thin-skinned and averse to criticism, had taken steps to control the narrative, limiting access and attempting to dictate seating arrangements. These efforts, however, had backfired spectacularly. The press, sensing weakness and a desire to hide the truth, doubled down on their investigations. Every stammered answer, every carefully worded denial only fueled the fire. The administration's attempts to control the message had only served to amplify it, turning the briefing room into a powerful symbol of the erosion of trust and transparency. Section 8, A Presidency Unraveling, the stakes have never been higher. As the days turned into weeks, a sense of unease settled over Washington. The Trump presidency, always a turbulent affair, seemed to be teetering on the brink. The president's erratic behavior, his penchant for impulsive decisions and inflammatory rhetoric, had alienated allies and emboldened enemies. The stakes had never been higher. The fate of Ukraine, the stability of the global order, and the future of American democracy itself hung in the balance. The world watched, holding its breath, waiting to see if this most unconventional of presidents would rise to the challenge, or if his actions would push the world closer to the brink. Section 9, The Future of Peace. A nation holds its breath. The outcome remained uncertain. Would Trump's gamble pay off? Would peace prevail? Or would the conflict escalate further? The world held its breath, hoping against hope for a peaceful resolution. One thing was clear: the path ahead would be fraught with peril. The decisions made in the coming days and weeks would have far-reaching consequences, shaping the geopolitical landscape for generations to come. The weight of history rested heavily on the shoulders of those in power, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the enduring human cost of conflict.